Are wheel spacers for your truck or car safe? We're going to talk about the ones that are and the ones that are not. So today we're going to be talking about spacers on your truck. When do you need them? Do you need them at all? And are there consequences for having spacers? Is there bad things for having it? Is there good reasons for having them? Are they safe or not safe? So that's what we're going to talk about on this episode. So on a previous episode, I talked about some of the bad things about spacers, and a lot of people said, they're safe and there's all this good stuff about them. And I wanted to clear the air on what the bad things are for spacers and what the good things are too. It's not all bad. So first we're going to talk about what kind of wheel spacers are safe for your truck. Well, I prefer, if you're going to use any spacer, to get the Bora brand. They are a hub-centric spacer, and they are pretty safe. They are a wider spacer. They have a higher density aluminum in it, so it's a safer spacer for you. They're hub-centric, which means that the wheel hub that's coming out that normally meets your wheel, and that's what your wheel is actually riding on, your spacer rides on that hub, and it creates a new hub-centric spot. So your wheel can ride on the hub itself. So that's the only kind that you can get for a truck or a car. Hub centric. It's the only safe route to do. They make some spacers out there that are skinny, like I want to say 1/4 inch, and those just space out your wheel a little bit, and they're not hub centric. Those are dangerous. Those are the ones that you're riding your complete pressure is on the lugs, and all your pressure is being torqued back and forth on the lugs. So those are not safe, and I would not recommend those at all. There's also spacers out there that are 3/4 inch spacers. I would not use those either, even though they do make a hub-centric 3/4 inch spacer. The problem with a 3/4 inch spacer is you don't have enough meat of the aluminum that lug nut is going to be biting against on the spacer to create a nice sturdy base for that spacer to attach to your hub. So because you don't have a lot of aluminum meat on that spacer, those are dangerous. So 3/4 inch spacers I would rule out also. Now the larger ones I would say are safe as long as you're getting the Bora brand ones. And I'm not sponsored by Bora, but I know that they make a good, tough spacer. So that's the reason why I'm saying those are good spacers. If you need a 2-inch spacer or something like that, or 1.5, 1.25, that gives you enough meat on the spacer that you get a good contact, a good amount of metal that the lugs can screw to your hub assembly. So that's a safe size to do. So what are the side effects of having a good, real big spacer on there? Well, even a good, spacer that's safe and it's hub centric and has a lot of meat to it, even those, you're moving your wheel out. And when you're moving your wheel out, you're putting extra pressure on your bearing assembly. So even a good, correct spacer, you're putting extra pressure on your bearings, and that's creating more wear and tear on your bearings. So even a good spacer is still going to be creating some wear and tear on your bearings. And what does a spacer actually do for you? What's the reason why you're doing it to begin with? Well, of course, you want to move your wheel out. That's the whole name of the game, is you want to move your wheel out for purposes of getting a wider wheel stance, or because, like on an off-road truck, you need to move your wheel assembly and your tire out away from your steering knuckle. And because your steering knuckle is too close to the tire, the new big tire you're putting on there. Like the Toyota Tacoma, if you put a 33-inch tire on the factory rims, your tire is going to be too close to the steering knuckle, and there's a good chance it's going to rub against it. So that's the reason why people end up putting spacers on Toyota Tacomas when they put a bigger tire on there. The bad parts are when you do this, your wheel is now going to turn in harder. So when you're turning your tire, the more you turn, the more that tire is going to come towards the back of your fender or the front of your fender, because you're moving your wheel assembly out a certain amount. When you're doing that, it's moving that point of pivot point out a little too far, and it's pushing your wheel back into your fender, the side of your fender. So that's one of the bad things about putting wheel spacers on. Sometimes you need to, and then you need to push your fender back a little more. But I'm just letting you know that's the bad part of doing it. For example, the Toyota Tacoma, you need to put a spacer out to get that larger tire on, but then you need to do a cab mount chop to make it so that when it pivots in, it doesn't hit the cab mount, and you got to push your fender out a little bit more. So that's how people put 35-inch tires on there. They push the wheel out, and then they put the cab mount chop kit on there, so they can actually get those tires to fit in that gap, and so that when the tire turns, it doesn't hit the cab mount. And the overall goal of this is so that you don't have to buy a new set of wheels. You can keep your factory wheels or whatever wheels you have on your vehicle. You don't have to buy another set of wheels. That's the main goal of this. At least, or you didn't buy the correct wheels to begin with, and you didn't have the right offsets or to fit the gap correctly. So that's the main subjects of why people would need wheel spacers, and the safety and the not safe parts of it. Like I said, if you're buying a wheel spacer that's a 1/4 inch thick, that is just dangerous because you're not hub centric. It's putting a lot of extra pressure on your lugs. Those 1/4 inch wheel spacers are not safe. Now they do make I want to say it's a 4 or 5 millimeter spacer. So if you need to get just a little bit of space, then if your hub centric part on your steering knuckle allows for you to come out just a little bit, then you're safe because you're still going to be able to use the factory hub centric hub. You're just pushing that assembly out just a hair so that you can still use that hub centric of your knuckle. So those, 3-4 millimeter spacers are still safe. If you're going out any more, then you're off the hub centric and you're putting all the pressure on those lug nuts. And like I said, the 2-inch spacers, if you need that, you have to get a hub centric wheel spacer. And again, you're still going to be putting extra pressure on your bearings. So just keep that in mind when you're buying these. So that about wraps it up, and let me know what you think of this. Give me a thumbs up, like, and you all make this channel possible, and we'll see you next episode.